August of 2015, Nicole decided to drive to her mother and stepfather's home in Tampa, Florida from Florida State University. When she arrived, she shot her stepfather after retrieving a gun, waited for her mother overnight to return home, and when mom got there, she started to have second thoughts about killing her mother. So she tried to escape from a window, but mama spotted her, and as you can imagine, mama was shocked. One, why the hell was Nicole home? She was supposed to be at college. And two, why are you climbing out of one of my windows? When Nicole's mother confronted her, Nicole shot her mother, leaving her lying in a neighbor's driveway with 3 bullet holes into her body. Nicole fled and made it back to Florida State University. A neighbor called 911 after hearing gunshots in the area.
2015. 21:33 and 34 seconds.
911, what is your emergency?
Yes, I called earlier about gunshots at my house, and it looks like I'm looking out the front yard. It looks like somebody at the end of our driveway got shot or something. They're like laying on the ground.
What is the address of the emergency?
14108 Fensbury Drive.
Can you spell the street name?
Fensbury, Fennsbury Drive. Can we get a deputy here now?
Yes, sir. I'm trying to enter this into the system. How long ago were the gunshots?
I don't know. I called earlier. It was about 4 minutes before I called earlier. I think a deputy's here now.
They are there. Can you see them?
I think so. I don't want to go outside after I heard this. It looks like there might be something. I can't really tell. There might be a body on the ground out here.
Okay, bear with me while I'm entering this in, okay? Can you see out your window of the deputy's name?
Yeah, I can see the deputy there. I think he's going to check the body.
Okay, is there anybody else around?
No, my daughter's inside the house.
Okay, no, I mean outside where they
I don't know. Should I go outside?
No, sir, you just keep yourself safe, okay? I'm not advising you to do anything, you just keep yourself safe. I'm just wondering what you can see from your window.
I can see the deputy outside.
Is there only one?
Yeah.
All right, what's your first and last name, sir?
Wesley Rowe.
Spell your last name for me.
Upon arrival, deputies found Miriam lying in a neighbor's driveway. They entered her home and found her husband's body under a blanket in a bedroom. Autopsies revealed Nicole shot her mom once in the neck and twice in the torso, while Robert was shot once in his neck. The search for Nicole began after a neighbor told police they recalled seeing her through an open window about 2 hours before hearing the gunshots. Nicole was eventually located and taken into custody in Leon County. Hillsborough detectives traveled to speak with her. While there, contact was made with Nicole's roommate, who informed detectives that Nicole was not in her dorm on the night of the murders, like she told them she was. It was also proven that her university student ID had not been used within the last 7 days. It wasn't until August 21st, 2015, the day after she shot and killed her parents, that her student ID had been used. Nicole was eventually brought back to Hillsborough County. She pled not guilty. Her trial commenced July 22nd, 2019 with jury selections and opening statements. It was a 2-week trial. Nicole and her defense claimed she was insane at the time of the shooting. They painted a picture of Miriam as a verbally, physically, and psychologically abusive mother that formed Nicole into an emotionally stunted adult child who lived in fear. They argued that Nicole also had schizophrenia, carrying the delusion that her mother was going to kill her, and she did not understand the consequences of her actions. Further claiming Miriam shamed her daughter about her weight, even though she was never heavy, forcing her to undergo liposuction. Witnesses also testified about signs that Nicole suffered from mental illness. She dressed in layers in the Florida heat, had to be told to bathe, slept during the day, and stayed awake nights. She was also socially withdrawn and fixated on Japanese anime and the Disney animated musical Frozen. 56-year-old Miriam was a captain and nurse in the Navy. Prosecutors said Nicole was worried because she had failed to obtain housing at Florida State University, so she laid out a trap for her mother. Hours before her mother returned home, she parked her red Toyota about a mile from the home after shooting her stepfather and cleaning up his blood. The prosecution acknowledged that there were issues with the family. They didn't dispute Nicole had a mental illness, but it didn't excuse what she did. Her actions were premeditated. Forensic psychologist Dr. Emily Lazarou said that Miriam had an aggressive parenting style meant to push her children to do better. But not everyone is going to perceive that aggressive style the same way. She argued that Nicole had a meek style of personality and lacked a sense of self. Nicole experienced sadness, had chronic feelings of emptiness, didn't fit in, and didn't understand where she belonged. She had paranoid ideation regarding her mom finding things out. As far as the state was concerned, however, this didn't rise to the level of insanity under criminal law. She displayed logical thinking over the course of the murders. And not to mention, she also confessed to her brother.
So tell me, Mr. Kerr, when was the first time you heard about these murders?
I was coming off of mid-shift, which is 12-hour shifts we do at my job where it's like 6:30 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. And got out around 6:30 a.m. and got to my car and I saw missed phone calls and text messages. And I called back and it was my Uncle Eric. And he was crying and he told me that I thought it was my grandma immediately because he lives in the same area and she's older. So I thought maybe something happened with my grandma, and then he was crying and he said, "No, it's your mom." And that's when I found out.
Okay. So when you're on these shifts, you can't have your phone with you?
You can't have phone in the building.
So you get this call from your Uncle Eric and he informs you that your mom has passed. Did he mention Robert at all?
Yes. The rumor in the beginning that was...
Check to hearsay. Also staying at this time. I'll caution the witness not to testify what somebody else said to you unless specifically asked and we have a discussion night aloud.
Without saying what was said to you, what was your understanding or belief or at that time in your own mind as to what possibly had occurred?
The understanding was that it was a murder-suicide, that Bob had killed my mom and was found with a gun in his hand in his chair, and he had killed himself.
And that's kind of what you had just interpreted from hearing things, and then that's what your belief was?
Yes.
So what did you do at that time?
At the time I was living on base, so it was a 2-minute drive to my house. So I remember driving home to get to stay on the phone and get a better understanding of what was going on. And then I wanted to call my sister, and I asked my uncle, did anybody call my sister and let her know? And they said that they told her that she had been in an accident and we didn't know her status because we didn't want her driving from Tallahassee to Tampa knowing that her mom died. We were worried of her driving condition. So I called my sister to let her know that, we all love you, don't worry about it, just get to Tampa, we'll figure things out.
Okay, so your immediate concern at that time was for your sister and her well-being.
Yes.
All right. And so, as you got home, so that's your first conversation with your sister?
Yes.
How did she sound when you talked to her?
If I remember correctly, it was a lower voice, maybe a little bit upset.
Okay. And in that conversation, did she say anything to you that you recall specifically?
In that first phone call, no. It was more just receiving the information from me, and I think she had already talked to some of my uncles before I had called her too, so she had already been given the news.
And so, according to what you just said, your purpose of that phone call is just to put her at ease, to let her know that you had family and you were coming there and everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, she's not alone. She's surrounded by family and everything's going to be fine.
And you said that you got off at 6:30, so about what time did you call her from your base?
Somewhere around probably 6:45 to 7.
Okay, about what time, East Coast time would that have been?
11-ish. Yeah, I would say around 11 o'clock.
Okay. Now, when you called her that first time and told her that y'all would be there for
Sorry
her...
about that, it's 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock? Okay.
10 o'clock.
Okay.
Sorry.
So when you called her that first time, And did you tell her at that time that her mother was dead?
No, not yet.
Okay. So what happens next?
So after I talked to my sister and told her I'm working on coming down, I start getting on a computer to see if I can buy a plane ticket to come to Florida. So I'm searching on the internet, and then my sister calls me back, and I answered the phone. I told her, "Hey, Nikki, listen, I'll talk to you in a minute. I just need to get this ticket." There was only 1 or 2 left, because I didn't want to blow her off. Half talk to her and half focus on something else. I wanted to give her all the attention. So I said, "Let me call you back. Give me like 10, 15 minutes." So we hung up.
Let me ask you, what was her demeanor when she called you back that time? How did she sound?
She sounded normal, like, "Hey, Joey."
Right. And so you told her you'd call her back because
Yep.
you were in the process of purchasing a ticket.
Yes,
And did you call her back?
I did.
All right, tell us about that. How long after she called you did you call her back?
I guess it was about 15 minutes or so. And I went to the couch and sat down because I had a feeling it was probably going to be a longer call, so if she's calling me back, my mindset was she needed to talk. So I wanted to dedicate time to talking, so I went to the couch to sit down and talk to her.
Okay. And when you called her back, what does she say to you first?
So she answers, "Hey, Nikki, just want to let you know again, we love you, miss you, we're going to see you soon." And then she got quiet. She said,
Oh, I'm sorry, one of the jurors is still having trouble.
"Oh,
Yeah.
sorry about that." So, I started off with the normal chit chat. "Love you, we'll see you soon." And then she just was quiet for a second, and then she said, "I'm going to miss you, Joey."
Just like that, just very matter of fact, I'm
Yep.
going to miss you, Joey?
Yep.
All right. What did you think when you heard her say that?
I didn't know what she meant the first time she said it. And I don't think I made sense of it just yet. And I said, "What?" Something like, "Say that again," or what? She's like, "I'm just going to miss you." And I said, "What do you mean?" And then at this point, saying it out loud sounds weird, but I was thinking maybe she was thinking of hurting herself because her mom's gone. So, but I didn't want to put words in her mouth. And I was like, what do you mean?" She's like, "I want to say I said, are you thinking you're hurting yourself now at this point?" And she said, "No, I don't think I'd do that." And I said, "So what do you mean by that?" And then she got quiet again, and then she says, "I shot him." I said, "You did what?" Like, I shot Mom and Bob." I said, and I remember leaning forward. On the couch and saying it again. I was like, "What do you mean you shot Mom and Bob?" I said, "Why'd you do that?" Or something to that effect. And she just started crying really bad and talking really fast. And I couldn't understand what she was saying. I was trying to calm her down. And eventually I was trying to get her to calm down and make sense of what she's saying. And eventually she got to the point where she was explaining that ever since she got back from London, her school trip, that she's had uncontrollable screaming in her head and like a high-pitched screaming, and that it was affecting her sleep and she was having nightmares from it. And then I tried to calm her down some more, and then she said, "If I had only gotten the good news phone call about the dorms earlier, I wouldn't have had to do it." And I didn't know what she meant by that. I didn't know anything about the dorm situation. I didn't know what she was meaning by that. And then she said something that I remember was, I'm sorry I had to do it, but I'm not sorry that I did it, but I'm sorry I had to do it. And then she was, more crying and things like that. And then I remember thinking to myself, well, I don't know what to do now, so I'm going to call my family and have them help me think correctly about this.
All right, now I want to go through this carefully because there were other things she said to you, so I want to make sure we get everything out that she said to you at that time. So you talked about the screaming in her head, the good news about the dorm room. What did she tell you specifically about shooting Bob?
Yeah, she said, and then she went into like a whisper, and she was like, I didn't think I could do it, Joey. I didn't think I could do it, but I shot Bob. I didn't think I could do it. And it was just weird because it was in a whisper and almost sounded like she was proud of herself. I know there was more being said, and I'm sorry. I'm just...
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Did she mention anything about what happened when her mom arrived? When your mom arrived?
So, okay. So she described, after she shot Bob, that a lot of the screaming went away in her head. It didn't go away all the way, but it went away a lot. And then she described she went up to her dorm, and she was hanging out in the dorm, and she kept seeing the signs in her hallway and her stairwell saying, you know, your dreams are almost realized, keep going, things like that, like motivational posters. And she took that as a sign from God to go back and finish a job. So then she told me she went back to Tampa and she waited in the house overnight for my mom. And then when my mom got home, she said that she got cold feet the last second. She wanted to get out of the house. So she mistimed it. She jumped out of the window to not meet my mom. So my mom was walking in the house and she wanted to jump out the window and just time it to where she would miss her. And she mistimed it and ran into my mom. And my mom said, Nikki, what the fuck are you doing here? And she said she blacked out and somehow she knows she did it. And then I don't remember if she said she was in the car driving or she was getting to the car to drive away.
Did she ever mention anything about you calling her an animal or something along those lines?
She said you can call me a beast, but don't call me a monster, or something like that.
How did the conversation end?
I just remember saying, like, why did you have to do that? You had options. You could have called your uncle, you could have called your grandma, you could have called me. Why did you have to do that? And I don't know what she said. She just kept crying. I'm sorry.
It's all right. Would you like a glass of a cup of water?
I'm okay. I'm okay. So, then I hung up and called my family back to find out. I remember saying, like, are we angry at her? Are we trying to help her? Help me think straight. What do I do? And I think I was talking to my Uncle Kenny, and it was either my Uncle Eric or Kenny, I can't remember, but they talked about it for a while, and they said, we're going to try and help her. And then I said, okay. And then I called her back and said, listen, somewhere in the process here, I knew that they were sending a detective up to talk to her. And I said, listen, when they get up there, just tell them you want a lawyer, don't say anything. And that's what I said. We love you. I don't know when I'm going to talk to you again. And that was it.
Did law enforcement, after you called your uncles and told them what Nicole had told you, did law enforcement ever contact you?
Yes.
All right, and did they ask you what Nicole had told you?
Yes.
And what did you tell them at first?
At first, I asked if she was going to get a lawyer. Does that mean I have to say anything also? And they said, yes, it doesn't extend to me. So I told them everything that she told me. I told them the story that I remembered her telling me.
Okay. And that was a detective from Tampa who called you initially?
Yes.
And did you ever meet with a OSI agent from the base and give them the same story about what happened?
Yeah, the detective told me I need to go over to the OSI now, or pretty soon. He had to make arrangements to meet an agent there so that they can document the story and all that.
Closing arguments were delivered on Friday, August 2nd, 2019, and ran into the early mornings of Saturday. 12 hours it took the jury of 5 women and 7 men to convict Nicole, who was 25 years old at the time. She was immediately sentenced to life in prison after the verdict. She does not have the option of parole. Rest in peace to Robert and Miriam Deans. Imagine going out on a Friday night with your young daughter for a mommy and me dinner. After a nice dinner at P.F. Chang, as you and your daughter are walking back to your car, a woman puts a gun to your baby's back, pushes her inside the car, telling her to scoot over, and then forcing you to drive to multiple ATMs to hand over your hard-earned money. That was the experience of a Jacksonville mother and her 8-year-old daughter back in June of 2010. The victim said the woman was on the phone the entire time talking to someone in Creole, saying she wasn't happy with what she had given her and it wasn't enough money. She made the mom drive to a Wachovia that was on Beach Boulevard and St. John's Bluff Road to see if they could get some more money. But by that point, the bank had shut down the mom's card. When this woman couldn't get any more money, she demanded that the mother take her where she wanted to go. Took her keys and the battery out of her cell phone, threw them in the woods, and fled. What happens next is just completely wild to me. 4 days later, on the little girl's 9th birthday, mom and daughter returned to the town center. Mom said her daughter wanted to face her fears, so they went to the Cheesecake Factory with her parents who were visiting. They sat outside and enjoyed their meal, and after paying for their bill, they seen the same woman who kidnapped them at gunpoint walk past them. Mom and daughter immediately recognized her. Mama followed the woman and called police. When the responding officer arrived, Mom describes the woman as wearing black spandex pants, a black tank top, and her hair being pulled in a ponytail. The officer canvassed the area. Initially, he couldn't locate the woman. He returned to the victim, who literally pointed out the woman who was sitting on a bench about 50 to 60 feet from where they were standing. That's when the officer called for backup. When additional police arrived, contact was made with the suspect. She was detained without any issues. And that gun, it was actually a BB gun that very much resembled an actual gun. She also had white latex gloves in her purse, which the victims remember her wearing the day she kidnapped them. The suspect was Ashley Sales. She was taken to the police station and interviewed by robbery detectives. She denied any involvement in the robbery and kidnapping. She was ultimately arrested and charged with 2 counts of kidnapping and 1 count of armed robbery. The state had given notice of intent to classify Ashley as a habitual offender. She pleaded not guilty. After 163 days in custody, Ashley had a change of heart and decided to withdraw the not guilty plea and plead guilty to all 3 counts. 2 months later, she was sentenced as a habitual felony offender and received an extended term of life in prison. She also received an additional 10 years on 3 additional charges that were unrelated to the kidnapping and robbery of the mother and daughter. She was also ordered to pay $400 in restitution, the amount that she had stolen from the victims that night. And court records show the $400 has yet to be paid. So friends, quick question. What's your opinion on life sentences without parole or with parole for non-violent crimes? The next 2 cases are 2 women that have been in prison for a very long time, both convicted of non-violent offenses, but both are serving life sentences. They will not have the opportunity of life outside of those walls unless they are granted a pardon or clemency. So again, what is your opinion on life sentences, whether it's with or without parole, in Florida or outside of Florida, just period, for nonviolent crimes? Drop your thoughts, comments, and opinions in the comments section and listen at these 2 cases. Alethea Jones is currently serving a life sentence plus 30 years after her 2005 conviction for selling cocaine. Her sentence was enhanced, sort of like Ashley Sells, as a felony habitual offender due to her long criminal history and because the incident that she was arrested for took place within a specific distance from a church. Though she's denied her involvement in the transaction that resulted in her arrest, she does admit to battling with drug addiction at the time and was in possession of drugs that day. Alethea was a passenger in her sister's car when they both were arrested by police officers in an undercover sting operation. Her sister got a 4-year sentence, and with the help from a Christian-based drug treatment program, she got clean and started a new life. She has not returned to prison since her release in 2008. Most of the offenses on Alethea's record involve stealing, except a 1997 conviction for aggravated assault with a weapon that happened in 1994. Again, as I mentioned previously, the only way Alethea will have the opportunity to live on the other side of those prison walls is if the state commutes her sentence or grants a pardon. I'm sure you all are wondering how she lost her leg. Per an article in the Orlando Sentinel, Alethea tried helping a friend and got stabbed. An infection led to her leg being amputated prior to prison. Alethea has filed motions for post-conviction relief and motions to vacate her sentence in 2007, 2009, 2011, and 2015. They all were denied. There was a GoFundMe created in effort to assist Alethea with financial support that will help fund her commutation process. Would you help free Alethea? Gloria Taylor was sentenced to life in prison at the height of the war on drugs back in the early 1990s. In 1990, Gloria was arrested in Polk County, Florida, for 21 grams of cocaine. The police searched Gloria's home and found 56 grams of crack cocaine and arrested her for trafficking. The assistant U.S. attorney offered to drop some of the charges against the mother. The assistant U.S. attorney offered to drop some of the charges against Gloria, only if she agreed to be sentenced as a habitual felony offender. Now, what she was not expecting was to have her sentence maxed out by the judge and the prosecutor and be sentenced to 999 years in prison. Gloria's exhausted all of her appeals. She was 34 years old at the time of her arrest and 6 months pregnant when she was sentenced to life. In an article I read, Gloria said she was in shock. She just stood there when she heard the sentence. She said she takes accountability for her crimes, but said she did not deserve to have her entire life snatched away from her. Her daughter Jemina has been fighting for her mother to come back home. Back in 2017, when people were advocating for Meek Mill, the rapper, to come home after he went to jail for a parole violation, she used that opportunity to raise awareness for her mother's case. She started ranting in the celebrity comment sections on Instagram, and it got some attention. She created a petition about her mother's case, which has collected over 8,000 signatures. Jemina said she used to not talk about her mother. She was afraid of being judged. She didn't want to be judged. But she got past the pride, she said, and she learned you can't be afraid to tell people your story. I'm so very interested in hearing your thoughts and opinions, friends. A lot of times folks don't get involved in these type of situations until they're directly impacted by it. Alethea and Gloria are not the only ones in this situation. There are hundreds of both men and women that have been behind those walls for years for nonviolent crimes, serving life sentences. Do they really deserve to die in prison?